The mashed potatoes were still warm when she walked in, steam rising like a quiet signal of what was to come. Her heels clicked against the floor, each sound echoing like a countdown I wasn't ready for. Mallerie didn't glance at the food. Instead, her gaze swept across the room. Plates set for two, candles flickering softly, her favorite wine resting in the glass she used to call the fancy one. On the stove sat rosemary chicken, a dish she once claimed no restaurant could replicate. I hadn't made it in months, but tonight felt important, or so I thought. She stared at the table as if it were evidence of some betrayal instead of an attempt at connection. "Oh," she said flatly, her tone devoid of surprise or appreciation. "What's all this?" No enthusiasm, no curiosity, just that single syllable, heavy with indifference. I stood frozen, gripping the serving spoon like it might offer answers. Should I tell her how I'd left work early? How I'd ruined my only decent shirt with garlic butter? Or how I sliced my thumb while cutting asparagus because I was rushing, desperate to make everything perfect? But none of that mattered. She didn't care about any of it. Without waiting for an invitation, she sat down and immediately reached for her phone. That's when it hit me. She wasn't scrolling idly. She was texting someone else. It wasn't hard to guess who. Watching her tap away on the screen felt surreal, like witnessing someone smile at another person during your own eulogy. The chicken cooled on the plate as she barely touched her food, her attention divided between mechanical bites and whatever conversation held her interest elsewhere. Then came the words, spoken casually, almost carelessly. "You know, if I really wanted to, I could find someone better in a week." She didn't look up, didn't blink, didn't hesitate. The statement landed like a punch to the gut, not because it stung, but because it confirmed something I'd been too afraid to admit. Something inside me broke, a hinge finally giving way after being kicked too many times. I laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. "Don't keep them waiting," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. When she finally glanced up, I added, "The spot's free." Then I gestured toward the door, calm and clear, as though guiding her somewhere she already knew how to go. For a brief moment, her mask slipped. She hadn't expected this. Not for me, the man who begged, who questioned every misstep, who tried endlessly to fix what couldn't be repaired. The man who asked if she'd accidentally blocked him from seeing her Instagram stories, who suggested starting therapy alone, even though she'd stopped speaking unless it involved logistics, who let her dismiss his affection by calling him too available. Too available. Apparently love has an expiration date, and I'd missed the memo. But that dinner, that moment, it marked the beginning of the end. What I didn't realize then was just how deep her secrets ran, while I busied myself cooking meals she barely acknowledged. The truth wouldn't fully unravel until the next morning. When I woke, she was gone. No note, no message. Only the faint scent of her shampoo lingering in the hallway, haunting the space like a ghost reluctant to leave. Her side of the bed remained untouched, as it had been for weeks now, but somehow today felt different. Sitting on the edge of the mattress, I clutched the silence as if demanding an explanation. My head throbbed, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight pressing against my chest. The noise in my heart drowned out everything else. That dinner was the moment everything shifted. For once, I didn't look away. I wasn't planning to pry. Honestly, I wasn't. But as I passed her desk, her laptop sat there, glowing faintly, humming with secrets it seemed to beg me to uncover. Something inside me fractured. Not anger, not suspicion, just this raw, aching need to finally know. Her accounts were all open. Email, messages, calendar. No passwords, no barriers, just an invitation I couldn't ignore. So I sat down, opened her browser, and prepared myself for whatever came next. It didn't take long. The first thing I saw was an unfamiliar email account. Not the one she used for bills or online shopping, but something else entirely. One under her maiden name, a name she hadn't gone by in years. Messages poured into the inbox, short and teasing, laced with flirtation. One subject line stopped me cold. Last night was perfect. The sender signed off simply as Brent. I didn't know a Brent, but apparently my wife did. I clicked on the message, and the words hit like a punch to the gut. You smelled amazing when you leaned in and whispered what you wanted. You drive me insane. My stomach churned. He called her Mal. Mal. A nickname I hadn't used in years because she claimed it made her feel childish. Yet here it was, rolling off someone else's tongue without issue. I kept reading, though I'm not sure why. Maybe because I'd already fallen into the abyss and figured I might as well see how deep it went. There were plans, detailed ones. Weekend getaways, dinners, drinks. One email included a confirmation for a cabin rental in Vermont. 2 nights, billed to our shared credit card, the same one she scolded me for using last month to buy tires. And then there was the photo. It wasn't explicit, but it didn't need to be. She wore my hoodie, the one she always complained smelled like stale fabric softener, and bit her lip, staring straight into the lens. The caption read, "Yours soon." I don't remember standing up. I don't recall pushing the chair back or knocking over the water bottle beside her desk. What I do remember is the sound that escaped me, a low, guttural noise, like a scream muffled by years of denial. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I barely breathed. Instead, I walked into the kitchen and poured myself coffee from the gray mug she said she'd found at a thrift store. Staring at it, I knew the truth. It wasn't bought. It was left behind. And I drank from it anyway, as if swallowing poison I finally deserved. When she walked through the door that evening, her face betrayed nothing. No guilt, no hesitation. She asked if I wanted to order takeout. I said no. She shrugged and turned away, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath my silence. She had other options now, though she didn't realize it yet. And so did I. But this time, I wasn't going to wait for answers. I was going to demand them. That evening, as she sat across from me, casually devouring pad thai like nothing was amiss, it struck me just how effortless lying had become for her. She slurped noodles while scrolling through her phone, occasionally muttering complaints about Brent from accounting messing up a client meeting. My stomach churned at the mention of his name, so that's who she claimed he was now. I observed her intently. Every gesture, every pause, every exaggerated sigh felt calculated, practiced, almost chilling in their normalcy. "You seem distracted lately," I said. "Is everything okay?" She glanced up briefly, flashing a faint smile. "Just work stuff, you know how it is. Still obsessing over those tires?" The jab hit its mark. That was her way. Deflect, normalize, mock. Make me feel like the paranoid one for noticing the growing distance between us. I played along, telling her I was just tired and suggesting we take a weekend getaway to recharge. I brought up the cabin in Vermont, the same one I now knew she'd booked with him. For a fleeting moment, she froze before resuming her meal. "Too expensive," she dismissed. "We're barely keeping up with bills." Funny coming from the woman who sent selfies wearing my hoodie to another man, but suddenly cared about budgets. I forced a smile. Right, my mistake. Leaning over, she kissed my cheek. A cold, calculated move meant to reassure me. But it wasn't affection, it was control. Damage control. She thought she'd smooth things over, oblivious to the fact I'd already uncovered everything. Her inbox, texts, call logs. Forgotten receipts printed from browser history now safely tucked in my pocket. I wasn't ready to confront her, not yet. I wanted to see how far she'd go. Over the next few days, I documented everything. When she stepped outside to talk to clients, I recorded snippets of her calls. Using a dummy email account, I sent an anonymous message hinting someone spotted her at Fairview with a man who clearly wasn't her husband. She denied it immediately, but instead of panicking or questioning the source, she simply deleted the email without hesitation. No curiosity, no concern, just erasure. Her actions spoke volumes. One night, while she showered, I checked her bag and found a cheap prepaid burner phone hidden inside. Scrolling through it revealed countless exchanges with him. Texts coordinating secret rendezvous, late-night calls filled with promises. One message stood out among the rest. "He suspects nothing. He's too soft, too soft." Those words burned into my mind. That's all I was to her. Not a partner, not a spouse, just weak. It was ironic. I once believed kindness and patience were strengths, qualities worth nurturing. In her eyes, they made me insignificant, easy to overlook, something disposable on her path to excitement elsewhere. After taking screenshots of every conversation, I carefully returned the phone where I found it. No destruction, no confrontation. Not yet. I didn't shed a tear. Instead, I whispered under my breath, "Keep going, Mallerie," because I wanted to see just how far she'd tumble before I pulled the rug out from under her. The next time she brought up her so-called options, I'd already have mine ready, crystal clear, meticulously documented, and primed to bring this charade crashing down in front of everyone. She thought she was 10 steps ahead, which only made it more satisfying. Every day, she smiled as if she had me completely under her control. And every night, she emotionally slipped away, piece by piece, assuming I wouldn't notice. But I noticed everything. Every forced laugh, every sigh when I entered the room, every glance at the clock during dinner, as though she were counting down the minutes until it ended, or until someone else arrived. While she constructed her fantasy world, I quietly built mine. Except mine wasn't imaginary. It was real, tangible, filled with documents, recordings, receipts, all lined up like dominoes, waiting for that final push. I began keeping a journal, not the kind where you pour out your feelings, but the kind you hand over to a lawyer. Dates, times, screenshots. I photographed her burner phone and uploaded everything to a cloud drive she didn't know existed. I recorded our conversations, like the one where she claimed she needed space, saying she felt trapped. I nodded, I agreed. I asked if she wanted some time apart. She replied, "No, not yet, not yet," as though the exit sign glowed brightly in her mind, but she hadn't decided what shoes to wear on her way out. Then came the night she thought I was asleep. She paced the kitchen barefoot, her phone pressed tightly to her ear. Through the crack in the bedroom door, I watched her whisper, "I just need a little more time. He's not going to fight me on anything. I'll make it clean." I didn't flinch. I didn't move. I simply absorbed her words, cold and heavy, like an icy wind slicing through me. She had no idea I was awake, watching her talk about me as though I'd already been erased. The following day, I played dumb. I mentioned refinancing the house, just to test her reaction. Her face tightened. "Why now?" she asked. I told her it could save us money. She muttered something vague about interest rates and quickly changed the subject. But I saw it, the flicker of panic, the subtle clenching of her jaw. She didn't want me touching the finances because it would interfere with her plans. That's when I knew exactly how this would all unfold. I started transferring my paychecks to a new bank account, rerouting my direct deposits quietly. I printed the full credit card statements and highlighted every suspicious charge she'd made for her secret escapades. I even reached out to an old college friend who is now a divorce attorney, asking what steps I could legally take to protect myself before things unraveled completely. But the pièce de résistance? I planned my own surprise. Unbeknownst to her, I'd already invited her family over for dinner 2 Saturdays from now. I told them it was for her birthday, even though she'd specifically said she wanted to celebrate alone with me. I made it sound intimate, romantic. Deep down, I wanted everyone there to witness the truth firsthand. Her sister, her mom, her uncle, everyone was going to be there. If she was planning to make a scene on her way out, I wanted an audience. I wanted them to hear the truth side by side, with no room for manipulation or deceit. Meanwhile, she kept up the act, kissing me goodnight without meeting my eyes, asking if I'd fed the cat like it was the most pressing question in the world. Every time she smiled at me as though I were some oblivious fool, I smiled back. Because nothing is more dangerous than a man who knows but doesn't let on that he knows. She was already halfway out the door. She just didn't realize I'd be the one holding it open. Not with anger, not with sadness, but with absolute clarity. And that dinner, it wasn't ending the way she thought. Saturday morning came like any other, except I knew exactly what was about to unfold. She moved around the house as usual, smooth and almost floating, humming under her breath as though she hadn't drained every ounce of warmth from our home months ago. From the hallway, I watched her carefully fold clothes into her leather weekender bag, the one she only used when trying to impress someone new. Not the gym bag, not the old tote, but the expensive one. I asked where she was going. She didn't even blink. "The spa weekend in Berkers," she said. "Callie's meeting me there, right?" Except Callie had posted 3 hours earlier that she was out of town on a family trip. She didn't know I'd seen it. She didn't know I'd called the spa and confirmed there were no reservations under either of their names. She didn't know I'd traced the location she accidentally sent to her sister 3 nights ago. A cozy Airbnb just outside town, booked for 2 under Brent's name. Still, I smiled and said, "Enjoy yourself. You deserve it." She kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong, then walked out the door, carrying betrayal in her bag as casually as shampoo and sandals. But here's the thing. I didn't follow her. I didn't grab the car keys or storm after her. Instead, I went straight to my office and printed everything. The emails, the call logs, the reservation confirmations. I included screenshots of her late-night messages from the burner phone and audio clips from the night she told him I was pathetic and easy to manage. 7 neatly labeled folders emerged, each destined for a specific person. 1 for her sister, 1 for her mom, 1 for her uncle, 1 for her boss, 1 for mine, and 1 just for her. I even used a label maker. You'd be surprised how meticulous you can become when your dignity is hanging by a thread and all you have left is determination. Then I packed my own bag, not clothes or toiletries, but documents. Financial records, copies of the house deed, bank statements, and 1 small USB drive containing every file backed up in triplicate. I wasn't running, I wasn't leaving, I was preparing for a war she assumed I was too weak to fight. At 6:17 p.m., as twilight painted the sky in soft hues, she sent me a photo. In it, she stood by a fireplace, glass of wine in hand, wearing my hoodie once more. That hoodie, it felt like a betrayal in itself. The caption was simple, "Hope you're relaxing too." I replied without hesitation, "Never better. Give my regards to Brent." 7 agonizing minutes passed before her response came, a single word. "What?" I didn't answer. Instead, I turned off my phone and left the house. I went straight to her mother's place, folder clutched firmly in my hand. I knocked, offered a polite smile, and said, "Thought you might want to see something before next week." Her mother opened the folder, her face blanching instantly. There were no tears, no gasps, just a whispered, "Oh, God." She invited me inside. That was the first stop. 6 more followed. By the time Mallerie returned from her secret weekend, pretending to be carefree, desirable, untouchable, she would step into a world that now knew the truth. A truth I ensured could no longer be ignored. She had lived her fantasy. Now it was my turn to rewrite the narrative. When she walked through the door Sunday evening, she radiated an unmistakable glow. Not one born of relaxation or indulgence, but of someone convinced they'd gotten away with everything. She even brought pastries, as if almond croissants could erase months of lies and hidden agendas. Oblivious to the chill in the air, she kicked off her shoes casually, unaware of the shift that had taken hold of the house. She didn't notice at first, not when she entered the kitchen, not when she called out cheerfully, "Want one?" I remained seated at the dining table, calm and composed, hands folded neatly, an envelope placed deliberately in front of me. I didn't need to raise my voice. The silence spoke volumes. Half the photos on the walls were Dawn. My coat, keys, and shoes, the little traces of my presence. The living room shelves stood emptier, lighter, as though the past itself had packed up and slipped away quietly. It wasn't until she reached the hallway that she paused. Her gaze fell upon the blank space where our wedding photo used to hang. She froze, then spun around to face me. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice tinged with confusion. I gestured toward the envelope. "Open it." For a moment, she simply stared at me, as though I'd spoken in a foreign tongue. Then, hesitantly, she stepped forward, picked up the envelope, and pulled out its contents. Printed messages, photographs, flight confirmations, details of the Vermont rental, screenshots of texts she thought she'd erased, all laid bare before her. Her face didn't flush with guilt. Instead, it paled, not because she felt remorse, but because she realized I knew and had known for weeks. "This isn't what it looks like," she stammered, her voice cracking as if on the verge of tears. But the tears never came, not yet. I tilted my head slightly, meeting her eyes. "Really? Because it looks exactly like you've been cheating for months and planning to leave." She opened her mouth to speak again, but words seemed to fail her. "It wasn't supposed to be serious," she said. "We were drifting apart anyway, or so she claimed. You pushed me away," she added, reciting all the usual excuses. But I wasn't listening to be swayed. I didn't care about her justifications. I was curious. How many layers of deceit would she weave before realizing the walls were already closing in? "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she finally whispered. I almost laughed. Hotels booked, pictures sent, promises made? How far did she think it would go? Without a word, I stood up, walked past her, and retrieved the second envelope from the drawer. I dropped it next to the untouched pastry box on the table. "What's this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "My official withdrawal," I replied, "from the chaos." Inside were the documents, a notice of separation, a financial breakdown, and a note explaining that I'd moved half our savings, the half I was legally entitled to, into a separate account. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was reclaiming my peace, and I was done waiting. She stared at the papers as if they were written in flames, as if she didn't recognize the man she thought she'd controlled. "I thought you'd beg me to stay," she muttered under her breath, barely audible. I met her gaze. That's the problem, Mallerie. You never knew me. I begged for us for years, while you obsessed over your reflection and chased other people's attention. She didn't say a word as I walked past her, opened the front door, or even when I turned around and said, "You had other options. Now you have one less." Then I left. For once, the silence belonged to me, and it was peaceful. The next morning, I woke up in my friend Wyatt's spare room. The air smelled of wood polish and dog hair, oddly comforting. I hadn't slept that soundly in years. No passive-aggressive remarks beside me, no pretending to be okay. Just silence, the kind that doesn't judge you for finally walking away. By 9 a.m., my phone was buzzing nonstop. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, all from her. The first few messages were classic. "We need to talk," "This isn't how we fix things," and the ultimate desperation move, "Can we at least have dinner to discuss this face-to-face?" But by noon, her tone shifted. Accusations flew. Anger seethed. "How dare you go to my family?" she wrote. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Oh, I knew. I did exactly what she feared most. I made her lies public. Her sister texted me too, not to defend Mallerie, but to apologize. She admitted feeling foolish for believing the version of our marriage Mallerie had painted. Her mom left a tearful voicemail, heartbroken yet supportive. "You didn't deserve this, Owen," she said. "I wish you had told me sooner." That hit harder than I expected, because I had tried to tell people, just not with words. I tried, through the way I let Mallerie treat me, the way I stayed silent, the way I shrunk myself to accommodate her mood swings and secret schedules. But silence only shields the one causing harm. That was on me, not anymore. By midweek, the fallout began. Mallory's carefully constructed facade began to crumble faster than she anticipated. Her friends, once unquestioning supporters, started to see cracks in her story. One of them even reached out to me, bewildered. "She always said you were the one calling all the shots," they wrote, "but now I'm not so sure." I didn't respond, not because I had nothing to say, but because silence often speaks louder than words. The truth was already unraveling her narrative on its own, quietly and steadily. Then came an email from Brent. Yes, him. He sent a message, his words laced with cowardice and backpedaling. "I didn't know she was still married," he claimed. "She told me you two were separated. If I'd known otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten involved." Right, because nothing screams innocence like planning romantic getaways with someone who still clings to their spouse's belongings as if they're trophies. I didn't bother replying. What could I possibly say? Thank you for dismantling my life with such finesse? The man knew enough, or at least suspected, and yet chose to stay in the picture anyway. Let him and Mallerie deal with the fallout of their choices. The most freeing part of it all was that I finally stopped pretending. I returned to the gym, not out of spite or some misguided desire to win post-breakup, but because I wanted to feel alive again. Alive in a way I hadn't felt in years, no longer fading into the background while someone else took center stage. I updated my resume, reconnected with an old manager who owed me a favor, and began preparing to move into my own space. Each day without Mallerie felt like shedding layers of invisible weight, revealing a version of myself I barely recognized but desperately needed. And then, just when I thought she was done, she made one last attempt, a handwritten letter delivered to Wyatt's place. 2 pages filled with apologies tangled up in excuses. "I was scared," she wrote. "You made everything so effortless that I forgot how to value it." She admitted to panicking when she realized what she'd lost and expressed longing for the old us. Funny, I miss that version of us too, the one where I carried the emotional load while she pretended to be overwhelmed alongside me. I folded the letter neatly, slipped it back into the envelope, and placed it in a drawer. No dramatic tearing, no preserving it as some twisted memento. It simply became another closed chapter, filed away under case closed. A week after leaving, I moved into my new apartment. Small, unremarkable, but entirely mine. That first night, I sat on the bare floor, eating a microwave dinner wrapped in a poorly folded blanket. For the first time in years, I felt calm. Not the fragile peace of walking on eggshells, but genuine stillness. There was no tension hanging in the air, no second-guessing every word I spoke, just freedom, pure and simple. Mallerie kept trying to reach out, messages arriving sporadically, each one oscillating between anger, regret, and elaborate attempts to paint our relationship as something complex and misunderstood. But it wasn't complicated. She cheated. She lied. When given countless chances to make things right, she doubled down on deceit instead. Betrayal doesn't need embellishment. It speaks clearly enough on its own. I never replied, not once. Each passing day diminished the power she once wielded over me. One evening, I returned to retrieve the last remnants of my belongings, a box of old photographs and journals untouched for years. She wasn't home. The house felt unnervingly silent, colder than I recalled, as if it sensed the inevitable truth lingering in the air. I placed my key on the counter and cast a final glance at the hallway where I'd spent countless moments waiting, hoping she'd choose me again. Quietly, I closed the door behind me, knowing I'd never reopen it. 2 months later, I began writing again. Not elaborate prose, but raw thoughts scribbled late at night. Pages brimming with reminders of who I was before I let myself fade into the background. I revisited hobbies I'd abandoned, music, hiking, even painting, and rekindled connections with people I distanced myself from while trying to salvage a marriage that only I was fighting to preserve. Slowly, the version of myself that smiled genuinely, without pretense, resurfaced. There was no grand revenge, no climatic confrontation, just the quiet triumph of healing on my own terms. I once believed losing her would shatter me. Instead, it saved me. And that's the part no one talks about. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to cling to what's broken, but to step away and let it crumble without you. I came to understand something profound, that I wasn't too soft. I had simply been with someone too self-absorbed to value tenderness. If you're reading this and find yourself in a similar place, doubting your worth, questioning your instincts, or pleading for scraps of affection, let this serve as your reminder. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose peace. You don't owe anyone a place in your life if they only ever took from you and never shared the load. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey. If any part of this story resonates with you, a lie you uncovered, a pivotal moment, or a quiet victory, I invite you to reflect on it. Share your thoughts, knowing they'll be read and valued. Don't forget to engage, subscribe, and return for more stories like this. Here, we honor the courage it takes to embrace the truth and move forward.